I decided I wanted to be a journalist rather than in politics, because I realized that as a journalist, I could hold people accountable and be more beholden to the truth, even in politics, even if it's your candidate or you support 90% of their views and policies. There's always going to be something that you don't agree with. And if I worked in politics, I would have to take that on. And I wasn't comfortable with that. I'm much more comfortable being a journalist, being the watchdog, being on the outside.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. I'm taking a week off from new episodes, so today we're re-releasing a conversation from the end of June, one that now feels even more relevant. When I first recorded this, Versha Sharma was the editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue. Since then, Condé Nast has folded Teen Vogue into Vogue.com, eliminating the masthead entirely. Her job and the editorial identity she built were swept away in that restructuring, which is exactly why I wanted to bring this episode back. Versha came into Teen Vogue with a very specific mission: to make sure young people, especially those who never saw themselves in magazines, finally did. She grew up in Louisiana's Bible Belt as the daughter of Indian immigrants, went from Obama's 2008 campaign to political journalism, and eventually brought that experience into a Vogue title that she transformed with intention, empathy, and a very real understanding of her audience. Listening back, this conversation is a reminder of what leadership actually looks like in media, and how much is lost when the industry sidelines the voices who push it forward. Here is my conversation with Versha Sharma. Hi, Versha.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you on this rainy Saturday?
It is a rainy day, but I'm pretty good. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's so nice to meet you, and you're the first guest I've had on whom I've never really met.
Yes. Well,
so I'll be learning about you with our listeners. But before we dive in, I want to chat about how Teen Vogue has changed over the years. Let's call it the history of Teen Vogue.
Okay.
Because that way anyone listening who isn't familiar with the title or thinks Teen Vogue is like the Tiger Beat of the 80s,
right,
will understand it is not.
Yeah.
And I've been researching it for the past couple days, and it's pretty fascinating, the evolution of Teen Vogue. And if there isn't already a college course on it, there should be.
Completely agree.
Right? And because I started working with Teen Vogue, and I don't even know if you know this, when it was testing and on the early issues, because every new magazine that Anna wanted to test, whether it was Vogue Man or Vogue Living or Teen Vogue in particular, we would do test issues, and the whole staff at Vogue would be the ones doing it.
So did you work on the 2000 Jessica Simpson, Nick Lachey issue?
Sure did.
Wow.
And it was very interesting. So your Teen Vogue is so different from this Teen Vogue. And I remember Anna calling me in. She had already promoted Amy Astley from beauty director to editor-in-chief of Teen Vogue when it was to launch. And once we had the research that it would be successful, that's when they hired the key positions. It was skeleton staff at first. And so Anna calls me in and she goes, for this first issue, I really want to do Jessica Simpson, Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, and Mandy Moore.
That would be an epic cover.
All together. I was like, that is never going to happen. That's like saying, I want Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Rihanna, and Billie all on the same cover.
Yeah.
Of a new magazine that hasn't launched yet.
Right.
So we ended up going with Jessica, but Anna really wanted Nick with her. So that was a whole other thing. And so to get Nick, I had to do my whole spiel. No, it's just for one picture inside, which was the plan. But to get him to even do that, because he had 98 degrees, we had to commit to shooting 98 degrees.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. So I remember doing the fitting with her. She was performing somewhere in New Jersey. So would she have been doing a stadium? I don't know. But we did the fitting in her hotel room with her dad present. It was just weird. But anyway, and on that shoot, we had Herbert's doing it. I also had to book that Tara Reid, Sean William Scott for American Pie 2. I did the Katie Holmes cover with Herb, and it was all about pitching talent that this was your gateway to Big Vogue. So
exactly.
From this point on, it's Big Vogue. Big Vogue and
Big
Teen
Vogue. Okay, good.
Right.
Yes.
So when I was researching this transformation, I had to ask AI to summarize it, and I'll just call Gemini, my friend Jim.
Okay,
he's
friend
a man.
Jim.
Yep, he's a man because he talks a lot.
Right. A lot of mansplaining.
Exactly. That is the perfect way to say it. So here is how Jem summarizes the progression, just for everyone so they can understand how huge this change was. So under Amy's leadership, the magazine primarily focused on traditional fashion, beauty, and celebrity gossip, targeting the stereotypical teen girl audience, affluent, often white, adolescent females. She helmed the magazine for over a decade. When Elaine Welteroth, Philip Picardi, and Marie Suter took over the editorial leadership of Teen Vogue in May 2016, they were credited with a profound and transformative reimagining of the publication. So Elaine's 29 at this time, Phil is 24, so much closer in age to the reader of Teen Vogue, whereas Amy was 48 when she left. So they were taking over from a 48-year-old woman. So this youthfulness allowed them to more authentically understand the concerns in language and media consumption habits of Gen Z and young millennials. They weren't talking down to their audience. They were speaking their language and reflecting their lived experiences. This was crucial for building trust and credibility with a generation that values authenticity and skepticism towards traditional institutions. So he breaks it down into key transformations include a pivot to politics and social justice, elevating youth voices, digital-first innovation, promoting diversity and inclusivity, and brand transformation, rebranding Teen Vogue. The demographic of Teen Vogue's readership significantly evolved. While Teen Vogue remained the title, the content appealed to an increasingly older, more civic-minded, and socially conscious young adult audience, with a medium range of 18 to 24 versus the early teens.
Right.
Lindsay Peoples-Wagner became EIC in October 2018, where she continued and bolstered the progressive coverage and became the youngest editor-in-chief of any Condé Nast magazine. Versha Sharma took over as editor-in-chief in May 2021, continuing the publication's focus on progressive politics, culture, and social issues. Coming from Now This, she has continued to strengthen Teen Vogue's digital video content and its commitment to covering politics, culture, and social issues through a youth-focused, progressive lens, recognizing that its audience is actively engaged in conquering and saving the world.
Love that. Thanks, Jem.
Today, Teen Vogue operates entirely online, known for its strong progressive voice and its ability to blend pop culture, fashion, and beauty with deep dives into political and social issues relevant to Gen Z and young millennials. I love this quote. I think the Teen Vogue reader is someone who's chronically underestimated. So it often feels very appropriate that Teen Vogue as a publication is chronically underestimated. That was you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So before we get into your life, what are your thoughts about this? Did you read Teen Vogue back then? Do you remember the shift happening?
I appreciate the thoughtful approach to the actual history of it. I also have to say I have a large framed print of that Jessica Simpson Nick Lachey cover in my office. So I have all, yes.
And I remember all of Paul Walker. I did Paul Walker. I interviewed him in his home.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. I love that. I do actually have old copies of the magazine as well as the prints on the wall.
Yeah.
We love the history. We respect the history. I personally think Amy Astley doesn't get enough credit for a lot of the really great work that she did, and yourself, of course, and so many other people from that era. But I was aware of Teen Vogue as a teen and a young woman, and I did read it, and I loved it. And I absolutely remember the 2016 embrace of progressive politics and this very unapologetic point of view. Again, this is when I was at Now This. So we were building something very similar, just it was pure video, all social video first. But I remember that because obviously 2016 was such a pivotal election for America and the entire world, certainly for our generation. And it was good to see Teen Vogue coming out strongly pro-democracy, strongly progressive, strongly representing their own audience. And we were doing the same kind of work at Now This. So I remember that. I remember the profile that Phil and Elaine ended up building. I remember looking at Elaine when her first book came out and thinking like, oh my God, she's so glamorous and cool. Being EIC of Teen Vogue seems like a dream job, but it seems like a long shot for me. And that really is what I believed when I first applied.
Really?
I thought that it was a long shot.
Where you were working. Like, we're going to talk about this, but you were beyond qualified. That's so interesting.
I appreciate that, but I do believe that. But I also believe I am the first EIC to not come from the fashion or beauty space. And that's very different for the magazine and for a Vogue title. And we do it all. And I'm passionate about it all. And I love that we do it all. But it is different, right? So that was one of the reasons why I was like, maybe I wouldn't quite fit in that world. Or maybe they wouldn't think I was the right fit. But I'm so grateful that they do.
Yeah, well, we're going to get into that because I actually want to talk to you about that decision. First, let's tell the listeners how you even got there. So you've spoken about growing up in Alexandria, Louisiana, as the daughter of Indian immigrants, and how being considered other deeply shaped your passion for representation. I recently spoke with Carla Martinez, who's the EIC of Vogue Mexico, and another daughter of immigrant parents. And she shared an experience where someone questioned her ability to succeed in fashion, saying something like, how does a girl from El Paso come to move to New York and want to work in fashion? Could you talk a bit about your formative years, including your parents, their initiative in forming the Central Louisiana Indian Association, which is incredible? I get chills.
I love that. I love that you have that in your research. I've done a lot of interviews. You're the first person who's ever asked me about this.
Really? I want to know how that incredible move on your parents' part influenced your path and perspective. And have you ever encountered similar moments like Carla described?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually getting a little bit emotional about you asking that question because, as you said, it's so deeply formative of who I am today and, of course, who I was as a young girl. I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything. I love Louisiana. I'm a proud Louisianan. My parents, my sister, I have a lot of family who still live there. I love going back home to visit, but it wasn't a picture perfect childhood. And I think children of immigrants in the US, especially Black and brown immigrants, it's a pretty universal experience. And Carla certainly had a similar experience. So it's absolutely true that there were times where I felt othered at school, in social settings, certainly because of the color of my skin and the fact that my parents were Indian immigrants, but also we grew up Hindu. My parents are Hindu and they raised me in that religion. Louisiana is in the heart of the Bible Belt, and there are Southern Baptists everywhere and very religious Christians, evangelicals who very strongly believe what they believe, and attempted to convert me and my family several times. I'll never forget, it was Diwali, which is the Hindu festival of lights.
Which we love here in this house,
Yes. And in New York, another wonderful thing about New York, it's a public school holiday now, which is amazing. But it is like Diwali, the meaning of Diwali is the triumph of good over evil and lightness over dark. That's what we celebrate. We had these Christian missionaries come to the door of our house on Diwali and hand us a pamphlet telling us that Hinduism is evil. It's an evil religion. I'm probably just a preteen at this point, but my sister's 5 years older than me, so I definitely had the benefit of having her as my big sister, helping me learn exactly what was going on. But I'll never forget that because I just couldn't understand, why would they do that? Why would these people come to our house? They don't know us. They obviously don't know Hinduism because it's one of the most beautiful and oldest religions in the world. And then to do that on this important holiday, I couldn't believe it. But it was those kinds of experiences that really shaped who I am. And I'm constantly thinking about that young girl in Louisiana or wherever else she might be, small town America, anywhere, and feeling alone and not feeling seen and looking at the covers of magazines and never seeing somebody who looks like her and also never seen a name like hers on the masthead or writing the cover story or being the main photographer. And that's why we do what we do. And I think that motivates a lot of the current Teen Vogue staff today.
Well, I have a question because I ask a lot of people how they handle situations, right? Or it can be rejection or whatnot. But how did your parents handle that situation? Because it could go either way. It can be an angry response, like get the hell out of here, or it can be an understanding that they have the problem, right? So they're going to be teaching you by their actions. How did that go down that night?
That's exactly right. That is a great question. And they handled it in a calm, measured way, polite, no thank you, we're not interested, we're just fine. Both my parents, but my dad especially, always had concerns about safety growing up, some warranted, some maybe a little paranoid. So if somebody's coming to the house of our door, he's not going to provoke them in any way.
Exactly.
He's just going to like calmly escort them away and be like, we're good, no thank you. And then we talk about it as a family, which is what happened. And to your point about my parents forming the Sun-Lot Indian Association, that was also so integral to the confidence that I have in my identity and my heritage, because they literally formed an association for all the South Asian families in central Louisiana. There are more of them than you would think. A lot of the Indian immigrant engineers moved there because of all the oil and gas companies and jobs available for engineers. That's why my dad moved there. So they formed this association that literally became a safe space and a safe place for me and my sister and our friends to explore and learn about our culture. And we would get together for Diwali or Holi and the big holidays. And we would have these beautiful functions and we would do Indian dance and we would have Indian food. And it was a really wonderful way to learn about my culture and my parents' culture. And I think their emphasis on how important that was to them definitely transferred to me, has become something that's very important to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's power in numbers, one.
Yes.
Two, it's like maybe you didn't have anyone that looked like you in your class or in your grade or in your school, and at least you knew they existed.
Yes.
100%.
100%. Yeah. Had so much in common, even if we went to different schools, just like you said. But it became a very important place for me growing up, for sure.
I mean, that's incredible. So many of my guests have known what they wanted to be at a very young age, and some truly felt the profession called them. When you were in college at Centenary College of Louisiana, so now I know you said you love Louisiana, you stayed there for a while. So.
I did. I went to college there and everything.
Yeah.
The full ride scholarship helped, but yes.
For sure. So you were studying political science and working as the editor-in-chief of the school paper. Did you have a clear dream job in mind, like before college, in college, and then that pivotal year, that year where you're looking for a job? What were you thinking you wanted to be?
So I will say I knew from a pretty young age that I really enjoyed writing. And I thought at first that maybe I wanted to be a fiction writer. I did a lot of fiction writing and entered fiction writing contests when I was in elementary school. And I even got second place in one, and it was in the newspaper, and I was so proud. So writing and reading has always been a passion of mine. When I got a little bit older, like junior high, I became obsessed with music and music production. I learned guitar. I was learning piano. I was attempting songwriting. They were not good songs, but I was attempting it. And you can imagine, again, my Indian immigrant engineer father, when his junior high teenage daughter goes up to him and is like, I want to be in music one day. And he was just like, what? Like what? It does not compute. It does not make any sense. But once I got into high school and then definitely college, that's when my interest in current events and news and politics really peaked. Again, I credit my dad with a lot of this because I remember being a very small child, sitting on the couch with him watching the 1992 presidential election returns. I just remember that. He's always been very engaged in politics my whole life. So I think I got a lot of it from there. But I knew in high school and college that I either wanted to do politics or journalism. And of course, what I ended up doing was a combination of them. But I knew I wanted to go on one of those paths by the time I got to college.
And was he supportive of that?
Not at all.
Right.
Not at all. They couldn't understand why I would want to major in political science. The only acceptable path from that is going to law school and becoming a lawyer, because that is obviously a financially stable path and career. Journalism, fine. It's fine for you to do that as a hobby, but it's not going to be a career.
Everyone I've talked to outside of Adam Green, whose father was Adolph Green, so he was the last person to be able to say, you can't, writing is nothing, Right. It's as if they didn't think that was a job or something, Right. Yeah. But the same thing happened where I went in as a math major and and my mom's like, what do you want to be, an accountant or an engineer? And I was like, neither. She's like, then why the hell are you majoring in math? I know from experience that first year out of college is a very stressful one, but a very formative one. You're on your own. The expectation is that you're off your parents' payroll and you are to get a job and become an independent member of society. You ended up staying in Louisiana and you worked for Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. You have described it as a very unique experience, especially to get to do it in Louisiana. So I'd love to hear more about how that happened and about the transition fully to journalism, eventually landing a great job at Now This. You said you'd rather write about politics than be in politics.
Exactly. So the 2008 presidential primary was my spring semester, my final semester of college. So again, as a political science major, something I was paying a lot of close attention to. My senior thesis paper was how Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton were treated differently in the media, and just evaluating and measuring that as much as possible.
I'd love to read that.
I'll see if I can dig it up. Actually, I haven't read it for a long time, so that probably is interesting.
Yeah.
I was all in for Obama. Obviously, he was a transformative leader for young progressives, and definitely young progressives of color. So I graduated college and I actually got a job as a field organizer on the campaign in Pennsylvania. So hugely important swing state, critical. I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is what I want to do. And my parents, bless them, being the conservative, a little controlling immigrant parents that they were, protective, overly protective. They said no. They told me that I couldn't take the job, and I couldn't understand this. I'm 22. I got a job on my own. It's Pennsylvania. I was like, this isn't going to work. I can't have graduated college and be 22 and ready to make money on my own. And my parents are just saying no to me. And so what actually ended up happening was I left Louisiana without telling my parents. And I packed up my car and I moved to New York City.
Oh.
Yeah, that's how I ended up in New York. So he wins the election. I'm looking for jobs again. I thought I wanted a job in the administration.
Right.
So I go to DC first, stay with some friends, end up getting a short-term gig on a New York City Council race. I'm like, oh, I have friends in New York. Let me go to New York for a couple weeks and I'll come back down to DC. What ended up happening was I came to New York, worked on the race, fell in love, never left.
Did they have an Amber Alert out for you?
Well, I don't know if I should be getting into the details here. I was in communication with them. I just wasn't being honest about where I was.
Right. Leaving it out. Hey, I'm eating pizza, which could be true, just not in New York City.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So it was a tough period of my life. And in terms of my relationship with my parents, of course, they found out and it was not a good reaction. And I had to deal with all of that. But once I came clean and I let them know, I want to try. Let me try political journalism and see if I can get a job. And I think it's important to say here that one of the reasons why I decided I wanted to be a journalist rather than in politics was because I realized that as a journalist, I could hold people accountable and be more beholden to the truth than anybody in politics. Because even in politics, even if it's your candidate or you support 90% of their views and policies, there's always going to be something that you don't agree with. And if I worked in politics, I would have to take that on. And I wasn't comfortable with that. I'm much more comfortable being a journalist, being the watchdog, being, on the outside. So I decided I wanted to try political journalism. And through a friend that I had met on that city council race, he told me Talking Points Memo, the U.S. politics site, was looking for interns. And so I applied and I got an internship.
And so you're in the big city.
Yes.
It's tough in New York City. I mean, I'm crazy, like obviously you are, that we are like, yes, this is our home. But it spits people out.
It does.
It spits people out. I've had friends come here and you can take it or you can't take it. I don't know if it's the energy. There's no place like it.
Slept on my friend's couch for 3 months while I did this unpaid internship.
Yep. But that makes you stronger.
Yes, it does.
Let's talk about how you got to Condé Nast, because everyone gets there a different way.
Yes.
Some people are lifers. Some people are spit out within a week. I literally just landed there, having never really thought about wanting to work in a magazine. I guess it's God's will or the devil's, pun intended. So I want you to tell us how you got there, because at this point, you're 12 years out of college and you're working at a highly respected company and you helped build the place. Did you want to leave? Did you hear about the job and feel like, let's go for it? The Devil Wears Prada had already come out, so you know what it's like, even just a little bit. So
I had a feeling. I am a huge Gossip Girl fan, the original Gossip Girl. So also what I learned about New York and the fashion and journalism world through that show was definitely part of my mental picture of the place.
Right.
I loved Now This. It'll remain like one of the things I'm proudest of doing in my career and life. But after 7 years, I was ready to leave. I was ready to look for like, what is the next opportunity? What is the next interesting thing? I decided that I was going to stay through the 2020 election, which I did. And so it's January 2021. I'm thinking, okay, I'm ready to look for something new. And that's when my friend told me, hey, they're looking for a new EIC at Teen Vogue. Lindsay Peoples is going to the cut. And I was like, oh, okay. That's interesting. And again, as I said earlier, I really thought that it was a long shot because again, a lot of great overlap between Teen Vogue and Now This editorially in terms of what we cover, how we cover it, the social issues we care about. But while I had done a good degree of fashion and culture coverage up to that point, it was never the only thing that I did, right? I've done a lot of politics reporting in my career. But I've always been equally obsessed with politics and pop culture also, which is another reason why when I found out the Teen Vogue EIC job was available, I was like, oh my God, this is the perfect next thing for me because I would still get to do it all and on a grander scale or higher level. So I applied. I thought that it was a long shot, but through the interview process, I met a lot of wonderful people who were working there at the time and it all ended up working out.
Well, let's back up because there's someone in between you and Lindsay.
Very briefly.
Right. You're coming after a highly publicized controversy. And I can only imagine it's already stressful enough to interview, but I would think at that point it would be like, I don't know, trying to get a pass to the White House or something.
Oh, yes. Condé Nast took the interview process very seriously.
Oh, of course. They were not going to have another situation. So what was that actual process like, or even just the interview with Anna? Because everyone remembers their interview with Anna.
Well, because of the timing of my job interview process, which was spring 2021, not even a full year after the pandemic started, I had the advantage of my first interview with Anna being over Zoom. It was not in person. It was actually over Zoom.
Oh, that's so much better.
Oh my God. And when I went for the first in-person interview, that was still an intimidating experience for sure. And I do remember I wore a pink floral Kate Spade dress.
Good.
And I think she liked it. But over Zoom, easier introduction than an in-person one. And we really hit it off straight away, which like I was amazed. And I don't know if this is something that you've ever talked about before, but I feel like one of the most underrated qualities of Anna's is her sense of humor. Like,
it's the best.
She has this very dry, very British
her one-liners.
Yes.
Her one-liners. That's why when I did the Amy Schumer cover, our video concept, Amy wrote it, was having them swap lives for a day. And we had her do stand up and we had to fill in the audience. Yes, she was brilliant.
I have to go back and watch it. But she's very funny. And that came through in the first conversation. And we talked about Teen and we talked about Now This. And it was a great conversation. So I was lucky that was the first kind of interaction that I had with her. So it softened the intimidation of having to meet her for the very first time or speak to her for the very first time in person. Because at least at that point, I was like, okay, I've had a good conversation with Anna Wintour. I can do this. But of course, there's nothing like the nerves that are racking you when you're walking into that meeting or office for the first time.
Right. And did she ask you what how you would take Teen Vogue moving forward? Did she ask you what your goals were for Teen Vogue or anything about what you felt you could do that hadn't been done?
Yeah, absolutely. So in that first conversation, we talked about exactly that. And I think a big part of my appeal was that I was coming from this video first company where we had just had incredible success in social video and on YouTube and across all of the platforms where young people are spending their time. And I was surprised at that point in time that Teen Vogue didn't have a more robust video presence. I'm sure it was a question of strategy and resources on all
the
of
whole
these
company.
things.
The
Yeah,
whole company.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
we're behind.
But in 2021, Roger and Agnes Chu, who was the head of Condé Nast Entertainment at the time, they were really focused on video.
Yes.
And Anna was very focused on video, and especially for young people, because everybody knew by that point that's how young people are consuming content. The majority of it, all of it on mobile, majority of it is video. So I think that was my experience in that regard was a big part of my appeal to her and to Condé Nast. And that was a big part of my mission coming into Teen Vogue was making sure we were actually representing the brand on all of the platforms and apps where young people were spending their time and being really intentional about that, not just adapting a site article to an Instagram post without thinking about how should this maybe look different? What ways do readers engage with us on Instagram? And just having that sort of custom thinking process about it, I think was a huge part of it.
Yeah, and you brought up COVID, and I think that's something we should talk about because you are taking over Teen Vogue during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
And your key demographic, Gen Z and young millennials, were profoundly impacted.
Absolutely.
By the lockdowns. Just some little tidbits here. The increase in symptoms of anxiety and depression has widely been reported. This was often due to the unique developmental stage where social connection, education, and career progression are paramount, all of which were severely disrupted by the pandemic and its mitigation measures. So while physical campuses largely opened for the 2021-2022 academic year, it was far from the totally open pre-pandemic college campuses that we know. So it's the new normal, but there's nothing normal about it.
Nothing normal, exactly.
Right? So I'd love to hear about those early weeks in the position and if the COVID situation was something you consciously thought about when taking over the magazine. You're already digital first, but still thinking about their emotional state of being. Too.
Yeah, I was absolutely thinking about that going into the role. And it was also a challenge internally because I was taking over as EIC of this brand and having to rebuild trust with a team that was upset with the controversy that had happened over Zoom, right? Like we weren't back in office at that point.
And it's hard already to be the new editor-in-chief coming in.
It's a huge challenge, period. And then also having to do it over Zoom and Slack, which we were using, was also a challenge. Thankfully, I am a millennial who was born extremely online and I'm a digital and social native. So I knew exactly how to communicate with my team. But it was definitely challenging. And back to what you were saying about COVID and how it has profoundly impacted the mental health of young people, the topic and issue of mental health is so, so important to me and so important to so much of the Teen Vogue team. In general, because we know how it affects young people, but also because we're very open, right? We're the first generation, I think, that is very open in the workplace about our own mental health. And I've talked about this openly for years at this point. I had done a ton of videos about this at Now This. I have dealt with depression and anxiety for the majority of my adulthood. And so I talk about that all the time. And I talk about what that means and the challenges and how I cope with it. So that was definitely top of mind for me coming into the role. And then it was also 1 year after the George Floyd protests at that point. I started in May 2021. And my first editor's letter was about those protests on the 1 year anniversary, and specifically about Darnella Frazier, who was the 17-year-old young girl who filmed what happened with George Floyd and those police officers.
Wow.
The reason the world saw that video is because of a 17-year-old girl who pulled out her cell phone and filmed probably the most horrifying thing she's ever seen.
I didn't even know.
She did it.
People should know her name.
Exactly. Yeah. She did it to document it, to witness it. Like the way that those protests spread across the US and then the globe wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that video.
And during COVID too.
And during COVID.
Against lockdowns.
Yeah.
Another whole level to it.
Yes, absolutely. So to me, Darnella was like the perfect kind of person to write about because she's emblematic to me of what we ask of young people, which is far too much. And especially when it's young Black and brown girls, again, like we ask far too much of them in America. But running a publication for those people, for that generation that is going through so much, I think is an awesome responsibility and something I'm very honored to be able to take on.
Wow. That is a lot.
It's a lot. It is a lot.
You are mothering a group of people that are your same age almost. It's like
I love saying I'm the big sister to all of these Gen Zers. I love being the big sister to them.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I know it's funny. I was listening to Andrew Bevan's interview I did, and he worked during the old days of Teen Vogue where he was at a party and this 30-year-old woman was like, "Are you Andrew Bevan from Teen Vogue?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh my God, I love you so much." But it's just so funny because at that time, he was the one wearing the bright suits and going to mall fashion shows.
Yeah.
But both him and everyone that works there now, they had a responsibility still, right?
Yes.
But just in a totally different way.
Yeah.
The big gay brother. So it's just funny.
Exactly.
I know you've said that securing the cover story with Vivian Wilson, the 20-year-old trans daughter of Elon Musk, was a coup because many outlets wanted to speak with her. You highlighted that Vivian chose Teen Vogue due to the publication's authenticity with young people and the trust in our reporting, especially of marginalized communities, especially of the queer community and the trans community. Any other highlights, proud moments there, anything coming up that you want to alert the listeners to get ready for?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm very excited about Teen Vogue Summit this year. It's usually been in November, but we moved it up to September this year to coincide with back to school, which is a huge moment for us and our audience. And Vivian is actually coming to Teen Vogue Summit, so very excited for that. She's
gorgeous too. I'm just obsessed with her and her hair.
I know her hair is incredible. I
love her videos, her TikToks.
She's so funny. She's so good. She's amazing. Natural, just a natural model.
Yeah.
The cover shoot that she did with us was the first photo shoot she's ever done, and she just killed it. She was just absolutely amazing. So definitely made for it. But I'm excited about Summit. The girl group Cat's Eye is coming. They're our current cover stars, and we love them. And they're really having a huge moment right now, which is very exciting.
Do you have a dream cover star that you haven't gotten yet?
Ooh, that is a good question. Yes. Will it impact me if I say who it is? I don't know.
Or in general, yeah.
Some of my highlights. We did a cover with Representative Maxwell Frost, who's the first Gen Zer to be elected to Congress. That was a great cover. Love that story. Yeah. And then we had the Heartstopper Boys on the cover too, which was a great one and one of my favorites. And both of those actually won ASME Reader's Choice Awards, so that was great.
Amazing.
But you know what? I feel like I can put it out into the universe. My dream star, and this is a couple years from now, given her age, is to be Blue Ivy's first cover. Yes. That's what I really want. And again, the Carter Knowles family has a great history with Teen Vogue. Beyonce was on a cover in those early years. Solange has done one. I did one with Solange's son earlier this year. We have a new franchise called Teen Vogue Moment, and he was our moment cover. Joel Smith, young model and emerging fashion designer, and he's wonderful. So we love that family.
So I think it's important to love your work, and it's obvious that you do. What is it that you love so much about what you do?
So I'd say a couple things. I love that Teen Vogue covers everything that young people care about. And post 2016, that means we're really intersectional, like we've talked about with the turn to include more politics. Like young people and people of all ages can and do care about fashion and politics and culture. It's not that you just care about one of those things. And so I love that at Teen Vogue, I get to cover all of that and be a part of all of that because I do love fashion and I've been very passionate about it. And I've learned so much as EIC of Teen Vogue about the industry, and I can't wait to learn even more. but getting to support young talent in those areas is my favorite part of the job. We have our Generation Next Young Designer program where we've made it a contest in recent years where recent graduates or current students can apply to be part of our Generation Next program. We pick 6 to 7 young designers every year who get a cash prize and mentorship, usually an ability to show something on display at Teen Vogue Summit, definitely on the site and our socials, and seeing what incredible talent there is among young people. And of course, the very diverse pool that there is as well is really exciting.
I know this is hard, but you have answered this, whether you know you did or not. But what do you think your superpower is that makes you so good at what you do?
I think my superpower is embracing my differences and realizing how important they are to who I am and how celebrating our differences actually brings us closer together and how important that is. And I just think it's been a source of insecurity at times in my life, for sure. It still is sometimes, but I think for the most part, I'm very confident in who I am and how I got here and all the different facets of culture and family and society that made me who I am. So yeah, like to tell people and to tell young people in particular that being different is a good thing. That's your superpower. Show why it matters, right?
And I think where you are now, it's a big thank you letter to your parents too. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
I know you don't have plans to leave Teen Vogue anytime soon, but what work do you feel you have left to do? Or
I have a lot that I still want to do at Teen Vogue, and I'm hopeful that we can accomplish it. One of the things I think you'll appreciate is bringing Teen Vogue print back.
Yeah.
Because increasingly more and more people talk about this, but it was last year, at least an underrated trait of Gen Z, which is that they actually really like print and they will pay for it, right?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me, and it makes total sense with the way that they've grown up and everything we've talked about with COVID and everything else. So I would really love to make that happen, and hopefully we'll make that happen in the next year. I also would love to expand Teen Vogue more globally. We're largely based in the US and focused on the US, but of course, young people are everywhere.
Yes, these are great ideas.
Have stories to tell.
Okay, so at the end of each episode, I ask my guests the same 7 rapid fire questions.
Oh, okay.
It's this or that.
Okay.
Super easy.
Okay.
AM or PM?
AM.
Of course, you have a two-year-old.
I was going to say, that's changed. That's since I became a mom. It would have been PM before.
And you get emails from Anna very early, trust me.
True.
I know. Text or talk?
Text.
Uber or Subway?
Subway.
Book or film?
Film.
Sweet or spicy?
Spicy. I'm Indian.
Yeah. Spots or stripes?
Spots.
Top or bottom?
Top.
Awesome.
Yay!
This was so fun.
It was so fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
you.
you.
Had such thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I feel like I know much more about you than you know about you.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.